Hi, and welcome to another episode of LawTech Connect with me, Adriana Linares. I'm your host, and thanks to Litera TV for allowing me to have this segment. It's Memorial Day, and here Conrad and I are working very hard for all of our clients and customers. So thanks for joining us today. Hey, Conrad Saam.
Yeah. How are you? Good to see you again. We are always working, aren't we?
I feel like we are two of the hardest working people in legal tech business.
It is true. It is true.
What do you do,
Good
Conrad?
to see you. So I run a marketing agency. There are lots of legal marketing agencies. There are probably, I would argue, too many of them. In my very, very biased and opinionated perspective, I run a really good one. We do online marketing for law firms and have done. I got into this business back in 2006, so I am ancient in terms of having experience here. But we do all things online for mostly consumer law and occasionally some more of the corporate law as well.
Can we talk a little bit about what you were doing when you started in 2006? Because your pedigree, your CV is quite impressive for what you have accomplished, especially in legal.
Well, so 2006, those of you who are familiar with Avvo, you weren't familiar with Avvo in 2006. It was a 5-person company, I think,
Wow.
when I started there. And the other thing, just contextually in 2006, is nobody really knew what SEO was, right? SEO wasn't a thing. It wasn't something that you guys had budgets for. And I remember actually the very first presentation I gave, and I think you've seen this presentation, Adriana, was called The Death of the Yellow Pages. And the death of the Yellow Pages was me convincing lawyers that there was this thing called the internet that was going to be their marketing venue, and no one believed me, and I had this big argument with like 400 lawyers about the Yellow Pages, and here we are today.
And here we are. Do you think the term SEO, search engine optimization, was even coined back then?
Oh yeah. So and the cool thing was, like, back in the day, I was very, very lucky to be in Seattle. I met some really, really amazing people, and Seattle was kind of this hub of SEO nerdiness. So Vanessa Fox, who was an ex-Googler, was out here. Rand Fishkin from SEO Moz, who started SEO Moz, that's all based out of here. There's a bunch of kind of SEO celebrity type people who are all focused not in Silicon Valley, but up in Seattle, and I got to know them. And it was a very collegial, helpful community, and they fortunately embraced me with open arms. And so I basically got taught SEO by these people who had been doing search. Back in the early days, people were making a fortune selling pills, or there was so many things that you could make a ton of money on by just knowing the like rudimentary basics. And they were sharing their secrets, and it was awesome. And it was how like this little tiny company called Avvo was able to surpass the fine laws of the world on the web by just really, really smart search. And I was just really fortunate to be in the right place at the right time.
That's so cool. So in 2006, I would have built my first website ever. And do you know what I would have built it in?
Front page.
Oh, no, that was far too sophisticated.
I don't know. Tell me.
Microsoft Publisher.
There you go. Game on.
That's what I built my first 2 websites on. LawTech Partners has been on the web since 2004.
Yeah.
So I had a little company before that and used Publisher. And then I used Publisher for LawTech Partners in 2004 when I launched. Then I upgraded. I learned a few things and went to Front Page. And then I used for a while before Dreamweaver. No, then Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
And here we are today with the miracle and the magic that is WordPress.
Yes, thank goodness, right?
Thank God. So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, other than it's always really interesting talking to you, and I know lawyers like getting tips and tricks on marketing and SEO from you, but I attended your Bedlam conference last week, and I loved it because, well, I've been building my website. It's the only one I build since 2004. So I really spend a lot of time caring and feeding for this thing. And I'm constantly redesigning it, and I'm constantly studying whatever Google tells me to do, I do. Google wants title tags. Okay, I learned about title tags. Google wants breadcrumbs. Okay, breadcrumbs. Google wants Google My Business. Okay, here comes Google. So, I literally just do everything that I get told. And when I attended your conference that you so generously invited me to, I attended the sessions, and I was either opening up the web pages to every suggestion that one of your speakers was mentioning, or I was downloading Screaming Frog at the moment they said, oh, and I was like, oh, I haven't looked at Screaming Frog in years.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about the Bedlam Conference in general. Like you've been doing it for a couple of years. So tell me about your partners and tell me about the conference. Then I'm going to ask you about the content and the speakers from last week.
Yeah, it's a weird conference, and I like doing things that are a little bit counterculture. It's for agency owners who I should hate, right? And they are my closest competitors, and they're great people. And when I started Mockingbird, I sat down for lunch with one of these guys. I was like, listen, can you just, I'm thinking about starting this agency. Talk me out of it. And Mike spent literally a day giving me advice, like a day. Like we spent a whole day. It was literally, I was like, hey, Mike, before you leave to go back to Idaho, this was at a Search Nerd conference out here in Seattle. And I was like, before you go back to Idaho, can I buy you a coffee? Like that Seattle cliche technology.
Sure, right.
Date request. He stayed with me through breakfast and lunch and just shared stuff. And anyway, we're these four competitive agencies, all of whom do very, very good work. I know their work. I tend to never want to take a client from them, because if you're not happy with one of those agencies, you're not going to be happy with me either. You're probably just an unhappy person. And so, yeah. But what happens when you have this dynamic of where you get four really smart, great speakers sharing a stage? This was the dynamic I didn't expect, and it's really, really great dynamic. We're constantly trying to outdo each other on the stage, right? And even though it's a virtual stage, like they're very much
bunch of guys on stage.
It is. It is a bunch of guys on stage, like trying to outdo each other. And the upside of that is the content that gets shared is mind-blowing. And so
very, very generous. You are all so generous with your knowledge and time all the time. I know that you get paid back for it just in exposure and clients, but I want to thank you because I appreciate learning from you guys, and rattle off who your partners are. Let's give them a tiny shout out, Conrad.
Quick shout out. So Casey Mraz runs Juris Digital. Casey was the only person who had a taped segment because he lives in Ireland.
Oh, really?
And he's either in Kinsale, Ireland, which is a beautiful town at the southwestern corner of Ireland, which I've been to, or he's on like a catamaran in the Maldives, right? Like he just lives this kind of magical life that we think.
Frickin' guy. I hate him now.
Yeah, I hate him too. But he's, still a good-ish guy. Mike
and
Ramsey,
his presentation, can I just say, and even though it was recorded, it was so good. It was so clever. I loved it.
So that was one of the, like in the back talk behind, like as his presentation was being like showing, like Mike and Guy and I were like, this is crap. I don't want to have to follow his stuff.
He did a great job.
Mike Ramsey of Nifty Marketing. Mike is one of the earliest people who was involved in local search. So before so there was Mike Blumenthal, Mike Ramsey, David Mim. Those are kind of the really early practitioners of local search, which is the map with the pins in it. And so Mike Ramsey did a great job. He does a lot of work with data and sharing information and data and trends about the legal market. And then Geet Sakalakis is my podcast co-host, super guy. He and I actually went to school together at the University of Michigan, and we ended up basically running competing agencies. So
wait, were you guys friends at UM?
No, so I was in grad school. He was an undergrad. And we joke that the likelihood that he worked at a bar, that the likelihood that he didn't pour me a pitcher of terrible beer at that bar is basically zero. So
right.
We met,
that's cool.
But we never knew each other. Yeah.
And by the way, is it called UM? Did you say University of Michigan?
U of M, yeah. I believe there's only one state that starts with the word M, and so whenever we say U of M, we don't mean Miami or Maryland or.
Hey, I'm in Miami right now, and I wish you
are. I know
Miami is awesome right now, but okay. So it was the Nifty guy, the Juris Legal guy,
and Attorney Sink.
At Attorney Sink. Okay, and then you guys had this conference last year, but I think it was longer. It was 2 or 3 days.
So what we did
Yeah.
is the first time we did it a day, and it was a very, very long, intense day. And people said, hey, let's make it a 2-day event. So the second time we did it in, I want to say Nashville, and we turned it into a 2-day event. And then COVID happened. And so we've now turned it into 4 one-day events.
Which I love. So, okay. So we had one last week and you've got 3 more coming up. What are the dates?
Yep. August 25, November 10, and February 2nd are the upcoming dates.
And who can attend this conference?
So one of the things, unless your name is Adriana, you can only attend if you are like leadership in a law firm or in-house in a law firm. One of the things that I hate about conferences, and for those of you, I've gone to more legal conferences than anyone ever should have. Maybe more than you, Adriana, although that might be a stretch. But they're gross, and they are.
I don't miss. Listen. I know this is going to live on forever, but I enjoyed COVID.
There were upsides to this, but the legal marketing conferences where it's like I was offered $8,000 to pay $8,000 to speak to lawyers for an hour at one of these conferences, right? And so you just have a bunch of vendors. It's a whole industry where people are making money, bringing lawyers together at fine establishments, and then they're just basically being fed paid pitches from hungry vendors who are desperate to recoup the $8,000 that they've put up to get there, and it's gross. And that's why I don't want vendors there. I kicked people out. I kicked 3 people out of the conference yesterday because I knew they were vendors. And you're like, get out of here. Like, I don't want
How'd you get in here anyway?
Yeah. So
you didn't have the secret code.
Beat it.
Well, the reason I asked that is because first of all, I knew that, right? It was an easy one. But the thing is that the attention that you guys give and the information that you give is pretty high level. So my question then, the second question to follow up is, the people who are coming to this conference are either, like you said, the thought leaders, or maybe they're the marketing people within a law firm. But I imagine a lot of them are the actual attorneys that are doing their own SEO and web and marketing and stuff. Is that right?
The appropriate profile. I think if you are an attorney, hands-on doing your own marketing, this is probably massively overwhelming. Like it can be, but it's so good. Even if you pick up one little tip, one free SEO tool that you can start with, I think it's still worth it. Yeah. I think where I'm going with this is like, if you're building your own Wix site and you're running your own Google ads and you're also being an attorney, like you're probably not in a growth mode where you're thinking about like, oh, how do I squeeze another 1% improvement in my landing page conversion rate, right? And so part of what we're trying to do with this, like Casey's talk, it was all these like very tactical, highly technical things that you can do. And so when you do that, like I believe this really strongly at scale, if I can make 1% improvements in my marketing performance, like it actually has a big impact, and it has a lasting impact. You know what I mean? Like it's like, I want people to be like turning these, like we're at the fine tuning of a large system level. Yeah.
Well, like for me, it's helpful because I'm at, remember, years I can fine tune, but there were times where I was a little bit overwhelmed. But how about this? If you're an attorney who spends a lot of money on marketing, I just feel like it's helpful to attend and learn, and then know either what to ask for out of your SEO agency, out of your marketing agency, how to talk the talk, how to make suggestions, or how to say, are we doing this? And I think any attorney who's heavily invested in their marketing and wants to be knowledgeable and not be throwing money at the wall and hoping it sticks should attend these conferences. I loved it.
The knowledge that you get out of this, like one of the things, and I already told you, like, I hate my industry. Like, it is a bunch of shysters, right? And they see lawyers and they think big numbers, and they build these like these relationships with their clients that are very one-sided. And so like if you're an attorney, you should know that when your agency tells you that they can't give you access to your Google Ads account because that would give you access to all of their clients, you should know that they're full of shit and that they're hiding something. You should like that came up yesterday. One other thing that came up was like, this is how agencies use your own brand to dilute the spend that they have to spend, but continue to drive traffic through Google Ads, right? Like we got into the details of that. So like, I want law firms to know like how they're getting screwed by people like me so they can take charge. And it's true. It's a disgusting industry, right? It is. And like the stuff that I've seen where you'll have agents like this was common practice where large agencies would register a domain for a lawyer to themselves. And then they would take that thing, get the lawyer to pay to optimize that, and then sell it to someone else down the road. Like, that's garbage.
You talk like that doesn't happen every day. You talk like that's of the past, Conrad.
I know it's still and it's evolved. The disgustingness has evolved.
Yeah,
but it's still happening. And I don't want lawyers to get screwed like this.
I don't either. I have always felt like in the technology world, like I throw on my cape. I'm here to save you from downtime, but I'm also here to save you from really bad ideas and bad suggestions from other shysters of the world. Yeah. But it's hard because there's so many of them, and many of them are even today still realizing, oh, I should get a website and I got to be on the first page of Google. And it's just so late. I mean, it's hard sometimes to be able to help them all, but
this is where I think the new late is going to happen. The new late, like 2 years from now, you and I are going to be talking about this and you're like, I can't believe this. This is the new late.
Yes.
The new late is going to be people who have just a very rudimentary understanding and approach to their marketing and the client experience that's involved in that. Right. Especially in like this whole virtual world thing. We'll see how far this plays out. Yeah. But the ability for us, and I've experienced this and you've experienced this, but rarely with a law firm will you experience this. The beauty of being able to use technology and automation to generate a really positive experience for someone who's probably, if you're talking about consumer law, probably at a pretty shitty part in their life is there. It exists right now, and we can communicate with people and we can walk people through a path and we can set expectations and we can make ourselves available. There are all these things that we can automate with technology. And yet most law firms are still doing a very, very poor job on this.
Let's give some hard tips. One of them you sort of mentioned. If you're going to build your own website, is the first tip, don't. But if you have to, don't use Wix or Squarespace. You should do something like WordPress. Or what do you typically say to an attorney who says, hey, Conrad, I understand you do marketing. I can't afford to hire you, but I need a website. Should I build it on GoDaddy's website in a night?
So if you have the time and not the money, take the time to buy a $19 book on WordPress and get the basics locked in. Right. Okay. Build a good foundation.
Because can I just say this? Because you don't want to have to switch later, right?
The switching costs are a nightmare. Yeah.
Okay.
Like the upgrading, it's we talked about systems, like improving something, like building from a bad foundation is difficult. And it's not like, oh, well, I can just start over, because actually you can't just start over because you have assets on that domain that you don't want to lose. So like, this is overly simplistic, but like, okay, so I used to be on this old platform and it ended in all the pages ended in like a .php, right? But now I'm upgrading to WordPress and it doesn't have that. Well, I just start over and I'll put on, well, no, because now you have to be able to redirect those things. And like, it's doable. It's not the end of the world, but like, why put that problem for yourself in the future?
Right. Okay. So WordPress, number one.
Yeah.
You can build it yourself. And I have seen some lawyers who've taken the time. WordPress makes it easy enough. If you just need a quote, simple website, which that's what everybody starts with, there's no such thing. But let's say they just need a homepage, contact page, and an about page. Okay. What's the other, like from your side, aside from please make it a WordPress site, what are some of the other hardcore tips? Like hire somebody? Don't hire somebody? Do I build my, how about Google My Business? Let's start there.
Okay,
That
that's
one's
where
easy.
that was going to be my answer. So
Okay.
here's your better answer to I don't want to learn WordPress, but I'm hearing I shouldn't use Wix. Go build Google My Business out in depth, right? And so so it's very, very powerful. There's a caveat to this, but in general, like it is designed to be a online web presence for people who are searching for either you or what you do, right? So like you can skip the whole website thing. I don't recommend it, but
Right.
like you can, because one of the things, and the data will show this, is there are lots of people, there are lots of firms who are getting contacted directly through GMB where from people who never see the website ever, right? Like
And
they
they don't
just
need to.
they don't need, I mean, to be honest, like if you are doing some form of, let me rephrase this. It boggles my mind that they don't, right? Like if
Right.
I'm hiring an attorney, like at the very least, let's see if they went to law school and like some basic 101 shit. But like, no, it's they're contacting directly from Google My Business. They're contacting you directly from the local results. And we see this over and over again. I've got the data to prove it. Like I'm clearly
That's
wrong
amazing.
because I've seen the data. So like go spend some time, and you don't need to know any code in order to do
No.
this, but go spend some time. Here's my caveat to this. If you are a car accident lawyer in downtown Atlanta and you started yesterday and you don't have any reviews, you're never going to show up, period. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're just not. And you can't rely on Google My Business. And like Conrad's tip on this is completely useless. But if you're on the other end of the spectrum, like game on, right? Just
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
live with that. And it's a great resource.
And it's really evolved. So I'm just going to say one more thing about it, just because I use it, which is you can have events on there, you can have bookings on there, you can post on there. So it's almost like an event page, a blog, and a website, and all your contact information is on there. And then can you talk, because I know you get asked about this a lot, and this was a topic that came up a lot in the Bedlam conference last week, reviews. So I think attorneys still sometimes are a little hard-headed about how powerful and important those reviews can be. So can you give us like a 3-minute primer and how to handle getting reviews?
Yeah.
And then your top 2 or 3 sites to get those reviews on.
So whether you like it or not, people care about reviews, right? Go look at like the buying behavior is based on reviews. Okay. And so just disavow yourself or get over yourself that you don't like thinking that people review you online and that's how people select you, because that is very much a part of it. So get over your problems there. 2, this is the hardest thing for me to tell lawyers. If you don't have a lot of reviews, it might be because you're a mean lawyer, right? It might be because your bedside manner is terrible, right? And it's really true. Like, so I'll move out of legal and into medical just to make the analogy, but the analogy holds. You as a consumer of a ACL knee surgery, even after you've had that knee surgery, you have no idea if your surgeon was amazing, right? So you may be limping. Well, that's great because you can walk, or you may be limping and my surgeon sucks, right? You have no idea. You don't know the quality, and most of your clients will not know the quality of the legal work that you deliver. And I'm sorry to say that, and I know that hurts your feelings, but I don't care. It's the same thing as your knee surgeon. What they do know is whether or not the doctor talked down to them, whether or not the doctor was available, whether or not the doctor showed up 15 minutes late with a golf bag in his hand, right? Like they know all of these things. And it's inaccurate, but you do it too. Every single time you deal with a service, you expect that the food at the high-end restaurant tastes better because it was served and delivered with great presentation and done well. Like this is just it is a huge fallacy and gap in the basic way we understand specifically services. But you have to deliver your service as a lawyer fantastically. And that, honestly, this sounds stupid, but that's the key to reviews. And then you have to ask for the review and get over the fact that it's awkward.
Yeah.
But
they have to ask for the review. Look, we all hate asking for reviews. I only have 5 on Google because I hate asking my clients, and they're lawyers who should be asking their clients.
Mm-hmm. I can see a really
It's
good
really hard.
email campaign for you, Adriana, where it's like, I'm going to ask you to do something really awkward, right? Go
I
ask your
should,
client
shouldn't
for,
I?
you should. Yeah,
And the thing is, you're going to say this as you would to your clients, they would love to give me a review.
that's right.
They just aren't going to pop out and do it on their own. But if I send them a link that says, hey, when you have a minute, do you mind putting a nice review for me on Google? It would really help me. They'd be thrilled to do that. And
Yeah.
so I think it is really hard. Like, why is it so hard for us to ask for that? I don't know, but I agree with you.
Because we think we should be above it because we're lawyers and the quality of our work should speak for itself, which is a bunch of crap because like people don't know if you've done a great job. They know how they've been treated. And so, you know, when you're asking for reviews, one of the things that I would recommend is something along these lines, something like, hey, I really liked working with you, Mary. I would love to be able to find people who are just like you. If you could describe what it was like to work with me. You're not, and like, so you're a divorce lawyer. Mary doesn't want to talk about her divorce, right? But she definitely is happy to talk about what it was like to work with you, right? And so it's the nuances of how you ask these things that become really important.
That's a really smart way to put it. Mary, I'd like more clients like you.
Yes.
Would you mind just making a little note about what you enjoyed about working with us? I know your divorce was hard, and we don't have to talk about that, but can you just talk about the experience?
100%. Yeah.
I might do a little email campaign next week.
Do it. Do it.
Conrad, I think when we started, I failed to ask you the name of your company, and I want to make sure and get all that information before I let you go.
Yeah, it's Mockingbird Marketing. You can find us amazingly at mockingbird.marketing.
And you mentioned it, but let's go ahead and plug it because it's very, very good. You have a podcast with Guy that you guys do through the Legal Talk Network, and it's called, is it the Legal Marketing Hour?
Lunch Hour Legal Marketing.
Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. And you guys cover a lot of these topics, give a lot of suggestions, and really talk about the do's and don'ts that the two of you, and probably all of you, I'm sure you learn from your other partners with Bedlam as well, what's working, what isn't, and what the trends are in legal. So it's a super nice podcast. Good job, guys.
I love doing this. Like I love the talking part. I love to be blunt, my desire to get down and add negative keywords to some Google ads campaign is basically zero, but I do love talking about this. And so when Guy asked me on that podcast to co-host with him, it was very flattering, but like my wife was like, oh, you have another way to talk more? Okay.
More talking.
Totally.
And tell everyone how they can find, friend, and follow you other than at mockingbirdmarketing.com.
Yeah. So here's my Google answer to that. My last name is Saam, S-A-A-M. It is a very unique name. And so if you cannot find me at Conrad Saam via Google, like I'm terrible.
You failed. If you can't Google Conrad Saam and get to you, you failed.
Totally. And I mean, that's like, it's a haha, but like you need to think about your own name as a lawyer because that is probably the most important thing that will be searched for when someone is vetting like an offline referral. And so like if your name is Conrad Saam and you're a lawyer, great. Everything about you is going to show up. If your name is Tom Brady, okay, there's a lawyer named Tom Brady. There's probably multiple lawyers named Tom Brady. Good luck, buddy. Right? You have a whole different problem. Right? Tom Brady, not the quarterback, right? What do people Google when they're looking for Tom Brady, the lawyer? If
your name is Tom Brady and you're a lawyer, I got a tip for you. Better call Saam.
Yeah. So like, think about your name. Like it's important. It's the way people look for you is very, very important.
Will you come back on another time and talk to me about marketing a niche?
Yeah. We do niche marketing.
Normally on LawTech Connect, sorry, I love talking to lawyers with niche practices, and I've had a bunch of them. If you go back and look, and I just think niche practices are so cool, and we don't hear a lot about them. And I really like showcasing and featuring lawyers that do like really cool things. I've had tons. I've had military lawyers, cruise ship lawyers.
Yeah.
I had last week a lawyer for NASCAR in-house.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know. It was very cool.
That's super fun.
I think I need to have you back so we can cover that, considering that that's a lot of what I like talking about.
Yeah, I mean, so like I've done a really high-end whistleblower, right? We've done, I do lemon law. Like we do
I had a lemon law lawyer.
Lot of work in lemon law.
So
which
interesting.
is
Hey,
like,
you need to
that's a
send me any
thing.
of your clients with niche practices to come on
All right.
LawTech Connect and talk about
Okay.
them.
Do you want
Yeah.
to do the other one that I have that is like, of course it's a thing, is fishing boats.
Oh, of course, everything's a thing. I had the crab lawyer he's in Maryland, and
Of course.
he works on the law. What did he call them? Longshoremen, I think. But a
Yeah.
lot of his work was with longshoremen, and I was
There
like,
you go.
of course, there's a lawyer. There's a
Of
lawyer for
course
everything. There's a lawyer for that.
there's a lawyer. You know whose tagline that was?
Who?
That was, I hate to say this, that was when Avo tried to go into TV. I think they used
Oh,
there's a lawyer for that as their tagline.
I think you're right. That sounds
It was
familiar.
something like that. Anyway,
Well, I'm always
that
sorry
TV
when we run
campaign
out
did
of
not do
time,
very well.
Conrad. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Pleasure. Good to see you.
You too. Bye for now.